if you can't build something while you're working a 9 to 5, you don't really have the chops to be an entrepreneur.
Ooh.
Because what happens is when you switch that thing to become a full-time entrepreneur, you still working 16 hours a day.
Facts, yeah.
So if you tell them you can't work 16 hours a day now, that might be where you need to be. Like, there's a lot of wealth to be built.
Absolutely.
And we need people in corporate building wealth too.
Absolutely.
Everybody doesn't have to quit their job and be a boss. You can be rich without being a boss. But most times people miss out on their wealth by chasing this other target. Work your job. If you have the chops, you will get something off the ground, and that business will tell you when it's time to quit.
Wow.
Pay attention and listen, we about to teach class. Inside the vault, my man Ash Cash. So get your man right. Thursday nights, 8 p.m. You see him, change your life. Millionaire mindset, the best on earth. Blueprints of wealth, the knowledge network. So get it while you can, and he's standing right here. Just come inside the vault and see black millionaires. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Come inside the vault and see black millionaires. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You won't ask cash, you can catch it right here in the vault.
All right, so welcome to another awesome episode of Inside the Vault with Ash Cash, the greatest money mindset show on the planet. I'm excited. Listen, if y'all didn't go back and watch all the heat that we've had so far, then you're missing out, right? But this interview is really, really special because, you know, as somebody who has been in the financial education space for a very long time, teaching people how to create generational wealth, and even as a banker, right? I was a banker, and one of the things I realized in our community is access to capital, right? So there's a lot of geniuses, there's a lot of people in our communities that have some great ideas, but because they can't get the money, because they can't, you know, get the opportunity to start up, their ideas sort of like die with them, and they're not able to kind of, you know, see them to its fullest potential. And so our guest is, you know, our first guest is the co-founder and managing partner of Collab Capital. And what they do is they help black founders take their genius and turn it into generational wealth. That's a bar. Fast shout to my guy, Barry Givens in the building. What's up, brother? How you doing, man? I'm good, man. I'm good. Nah, thank you, man. I'm excited because, I mean, first of all, you're a techie. You don't look like a techie. You know what I'm saying? Like, we behind the scenes, we talk about hooping. I just have this vision of somebody being a techie, just having a different look, right? But you like a hooper, you know what I'm saying? You cool, you know what I'm saying? Like, and not saying no disrespect to techies, but
those false narratives.
Exactly, those false narratives. But before we jump into all of the great things that you're doing for our community, for those who don't know, in your words, who is Barry Givens?
Oh man, that's a deep one there.
Yeah.
Man, first I'm a child of my parents, right? Artania and Barry Givens Sr. They made every single ounce of everything you see here today, and with a mix of God mixed in that took me away from all the mistakes that I've made, like everyone else. You know, I'm nothing special in that sense, but I'm a grinder, man. Like from high school on to going to Georgia Tech hard as hell, right? Like you have to really be on your shit to get out of Georgia Tech. And, you know, pledged my freshman year, so I'm a Kappa, you know, grinded through that first freshman in a very long time in my chapter, and started several businesses through college. And so, yeah, man, I've just always been a grinder, a hustler. But most importantly, I've always had this focus on impact. Like from growing up, the reason I wanted to be an engineer was because in my mind, we talked about this financial mindset. I thought that $100,000 would allow me to save all my family, my just my mom, my dad, my brother.
Wow.
But I was like, man, if I can make $100,000, all my little cousins back in Milwaukee, like I'm sending everybody to college, like $100,000 a year, like everybody tuition free, right? Yep. And so that's how I came to want to be an engineer. I was like, I'm good at math. I like building shit. Engineers make $100,000. I'm gonna be an engineer and I'm gonna save the planet, right?
Yep.
Quickly found out $100,000 does not get you there. Yep. And so then Barry Givens shifted from this engineering mindset to how do you use that same mindset and capability and strategy thought process to actually go be an entrepreneur, because that's where real money, that's where the world changing money can be made. And so started a company, we can get into all this, but started companies in college, took that mindset, started, you know, worked in corporate for a tiny little bit, just to save up enough cash to start my businesses, and have started several other technology startups since I graduated college. But at my heart, like, I'm a dude that cares about Black people, that cares about our community, and that is gonna do everything possible and grind every way possible to make sure that we good.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Are you a coach, consultant, service provider, course creator, or expert that wants more clients to happily pay you $3K to $10K for your programs and services? If you answered yes, I have a special gift for you. It's from my guy, Marquell Russell, and it's called the Paid Ad Playbook, which shows you how to actually get 50 to 100 leads every single day that actually convert into clients. Marquell, he's used the same process to help clients create over $250 million in revenue. And this is more than $250 million. You heard me right. Some of the top influencers, coaches, and consultants in the world have used Marquell strategies to build multi-million-dollar businesses, and they still use them on a daily basis. And the cool thing is that this works for you even if nobody knows who you are. So to get free access, go to InsideTheVaultGift.com or text VAULT to 904-447-5274. Again, that's InsideTheVaultGift.com or text VAULT to 904-447-5274. My guy's gonna take care of you. Let him know that Ash Cash sent you. And where does that mindset come from, though, right? So you said you've been a grinder all your life, always hustling. Was that something that your parents instilled in you? Was that something that you saw growing up? Like, what, where's that level of work ethic? Because we're gonna get into some of the businesses, and you've done some phenomenal things at early age and been able to really kind of do some, and you're still doing phenomenal things. So where did that mindset come from?
Oh man, just watching my dad, like even my mom, like she stopped working or when I was in middle school, right? So she was a stay-at-home mom after that. And even then, right, it was like watching her at home. It's like everything that she did, she just worked all day. I come home from school, she's still working, she's still doing something. Same thing with my dad. It was every day work. But also they didn't just give me anything. That's right. So like growing up, it was, I wasn't poor, but also wasn't rich, right? We were like lower, like right smack dab, lower middle class. So I didn't want for anything like need wise, but I've still never owned a pair of Jordans. Like to this day, I'm 36 years old, and growing up, it was like if you wanted J's, go get a job. Like if you want to spend $150 on some tennis shoes, you gonna pay for it, right? And so I never had no J's.
Wow.
And I worked every day, like all from the time I turned 16. I worked a full-time job in high school. Wow. Like I went to class every day, played sports, and still worked 40 hours a week for most of my senior year and most of my senior year, most of my junior year. So I was always just working to get the things that I wanted. And then as you get older and that mindset changes and the things that you want become, I want to impact my community, I want to do more for my people, that mindset just goes from that to, I'm not waiting on anyone else to do it for me. I'm not waiting on anyone to buy me those J's, or I'm not waiting on anyone to give me anything. I know I have the ability, the mindset, the brains to do everything I need to go get whatever's up here. I can go get the shit done.
Wow, yeah.
And I just have to go do it. And no one else can stop me from doing it as long as I believe in myself. And so.
And how did it shift though? How does it shift from, you could get stuff done to wanting to help the community? Because that's something that I don't necessarily, especially in young people. I'll be honest with you, right? So like, I know, when you start thinking like, I want to save the community, it's usually like our elders who are like, I made all the mistakes and I want to make sure that y'all don't make the same mistakes. But as a young guy who is like, I want to save the community. I want to make sure that, businesses are being funded. Like where, where did that shift come from?
Exposure. Right? Like it started with wanting to save my family, right? It was like, we didn't come from much. Like I said, we were, my cousins always called me the rich cousin, right? And so, it was, man, I want to help my family. But then when you get out of that bubble, that's that bubble, especially in the Black community, we're typically trapped on our block. We're trapped in our street, trapped in our family. And then you go out and you realize my family is a microcosm of the Black community, right? And so then you start to understand as well, one, that 100K ain't gonna get you there even with your family.
Yeah.
But also, there's opportunities out here for us to go make billions of dollars and make real impact.
Yeah.
And once you get that exposure and your mindset shifts from a 100 grand mindset to $1 billion mindset, then your goals shift too. So your goals shift from my family to the whole black community is my family, and I can get there, right? And so now I also have different tools in my fingertips, right? Like now, before I was playing with 100 grand, now I'm playing with, when I started my businesses, I was in corporate making 100 grand a year. I was putting 30, 40 towards the business. Now I'm out here playing with 50 mil, right? Next, I'm gonna be playing with 200 mil, right? And so as you play and you get exposure to these different things, your mindset has to shift. Or what you're gonna do is you're gonna waste it on Bentleys and you're gonna waste it on all this other stuff. And so I literally just moved the same impact mindset I had. I would allow that mindset to grow with the exposure that I had to capital. And so now it becomes, we're gonna save everybody black.
Yeah, and I love what you said. There's billions of dollars that could be made in tech, right? And I think that's important to know, because when we talk about the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world and 20-something years old, multi-billionaire. But I also know there's disparities though in that industry. Talk a little bit about that. Like why do you think there aren't, with that ability, to literally change the your family forever? It can happen not overnight, but it can happen rather quickly. Yeah. But we're not in the game as much as we should be. Why is that?
Technology should be the best equalizer when it comes to capital, right? You can get stuff done, you can build an app, you learn how to code, you can do that outside of college. You don't even need to go to school for that skill set. When you get to capital though, that's where things get manufactured.
Oh, okay.
Right? So when you look at a lot of these companies that we see, we talk about the grind and we talk about what they're not saying these founders didn't grind and they didn't go through all some of these startup struggles that all founders go through, but it's a lot different when you see a black founder on the same journey, same trajectory. Think about Black Planet. That's a fact. Black Planet, it is very well documented. MySpace was created because of Black Planet, and Facebook learned from MySpace and both of them. But you give that founder at Black Planet the same 10 mil that you give to Mark Zuckerberg. Now you're talking about manufacturing success, right? Because Facebook didn't make any money really until it damn near IPO, right? And so what happens in our networks is that we get just enough money to make some noise. To say, oh, we got this black founder just raised $1 million, and this is where that money mindset changes. Because it's black people, we're like, oh shit, we got $1 million.
Facts.
And then you go read the next article, and it's your competitor just got 15. They just bought the market, right? They're not smarter than you. They have a little bit more access than you because of the investors that invested in them, but basically they got enough money to fail and keep going. Most of the times, black founders, if we get anything, we get just enough money that we have to do it perfectly. If we hit
wait, that's a bar right there, right? They get enough money to fail, which means that they could keep going over and over again, and they could afford to make the mistakes. And in those mistakes, because success doesn't happen without the mistakes, so they could afford to make those mistakes. But we get, my fault, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's
no. It's something we don't talk about enough in the venture capital industry, right? It's like a lot of times you don't need a bunch of money to get a company off the ground. The five of us in this room right now, right? We can damn scrounge up 30 grand and go get an app built off an idea we just came up with and get it in the market. But then it's how do you get it in front of 1 million people? You have to go test all these ads out. You got to go do all this digital advertising, buy some billboards, do some testing. We're going to try a market that's not going to be the right market. We're going to say, oh, but we learned from that market that maybe the 18 to 25-year-olds aren't it, but these 35 to 50, that's our real market. So now we have enough money to try that market and go do another test over here in this market. All the while we have 20 people that work for us. That capital buys you time, right? If you don't have time when you don't have the money. And so, man, we can get in this thing gets so deep when it gets to those disparities, but the black tax. Right. You look at what investors are looking for to give you that other 10 million that you're waiting for instead of getting 1, getting 10. They want you to not be working a full-time job. They will literally ignore you because they believe you haven't went all in if you're still working. I had to fund my own business. Every company I started, I worked all the way up into the bitter end, right? Where I said, okay, now I have enough. Like sometimes we glorify this whole quit your job thing. Yeah. No, I didn't quit until I knew I was on a path. Like I had built everything, tested everything, had customers, and then I quit my job. I would have loved to quit 18 months before, but as black people, a lot of times we don't have to, like, we're not just paying our bills, we paying grandma. We paying mama's bills. We paying our little brother and sister, you know, to feed them on campus while they in school. Like, whatever the case may be, most of us are first generational money. And so the whole family is leaning on us. We can't quit a job. And so as many of these things that have been built into this narrative of what success or what a founder that will be successful looks like, and many of those things, black people don't fit into that narrative because it's been white men that have created the narrative. And so now we have to see more, and this is why I do podcasts, why I'm visible, is because more black people need to understand, no, you can have a job. Right. You might have to work a little harder and work till 2 a.m, and you can be a single mom and get some shit off the ground. Like all these things that we've been told we can't do, they're possible. We just have to tell the stories of the ones that did it. One, to encourage our people that it's possible, but two, to show the mofos on the other side that here's what success looks like for us. Absolutely. And so now we open it up to them to say, but we have to prove it to them first. And that's what we're doing at Collab.
No, I love it. I love it. And so talk about some of those businesses though, right? Because you said, man, I started multiple businesses. Yep. You know, I had a full-time job and I was working up until we got successful. I mean, I know the level of success. So I want the people to know, but talk about some of those businesses you started. You know?
Ooh, yeah, we'll go back to the original.
Yeah.
It's a company called Slushy Kicks. Go Google it. It might still be up there.
Do your Googles.
It was actually my roommate Omari just started painting tennis shoes. So we in college, broke, and we got tired of spending a bunch of money on clothes and shit, and so we was like, man, we can just start. It was called Afrologics first. It was like black people mindset, right? It was like Afrologics. And so we started like literally, we bought a screen press, started making t-shirts in the dorm room, and it was like, man, we should have some dope shoes to match the dope designs on our shirts. Started painting shoes. Fast forward a couple of months, and we get picked up by a boutique in Atlanta. And Big Boy, I got that Perp album and went to this boutique, and it just so happens that the first pair we put in the boutique was this shiny purple pair. So we started getting phone calls the next week. Nice. Big Boy's releasing his album on 106 in Park, and he's sitting on 106 in Park with his feet up with a pair of Slushy Kicks on 106 in Park. Wow. So we blowing up at that point, and like we sold shoes to Jeezy, Jagged Edge, T.I., LeBron James, Carmelo, Carlos Boozer. We were just on MySpace. We were just slinging shoes. The boutique was selling them for us, so they started doing numbers. But that was that we coined this phrase, money is just an idea. And so that was like my first foray. That's the first time I'd ever done anything on my own, like it made money or something that we created. And that was literally the spark that got me into entrepreneurship. And so after that, it's a bunch that go into that story too, but after that, I went on, continued school, graduated from Georgia Tech, and my first year out, I went and started a real estate tech company. I graduated school in 2008. Oh,
your timing was perfect.
Oh, perfect. And I'm cocky as shit too, so I was like, oh, I don't care about no down market, no recession. They must not know who I am. So went to Augusta. This is when we had my first corporate job, that 100K job coming out of college, and saved up every single penny, right? Like outside of a dumb decision, we'll get on that later. I did make one dumb financial decision, but saved up all my money, worked until I had like 50, 60 grand saved up, and then moved and started this company in Durham. My wife was in medical school at Duke. And that one failed. Like where the first one was for what it was a huge success. The second one, oh man, I ended up just being a real estate agent. Wow. Like just to pay the bills. It was in my industry, so I was like, I'm gonna go sell these houses so I can make some money. Ended up doing that for a couple of years, but that's where I learned like the startup capital needed to. If you're gonna do a real business, not like there's like hustles. Like the shoe business, that was a hustle, right? You can go buy some Air Force One, some paint. And for $200, you can be like off to the races. Then I need to start businesses where I need to build an app. I need to like do things that require me to have capital. And I burned through my capital. So all that money I saved, I burned through it so fast. And then it left me with not enough time, that capital thing. I didn't have enough time to go through some of the things. Like one big thing we ran into was I was doing digital signatures. DocuSign was not legal yet. Ooh. Digital signatures weren't legal in real estate yet. So I was like way ahead of the curve. I was walking around with my laptop doing virtual showings. Now that stuff, it's all automated nowadays, but back then I was literally doing this stuff by hand. So I had to buy iPads and computers and all these things that I was doing, and you run out of time, you run out of money. I didn't have enough time to let the market catch up to my innovation. Right? And that's what you buy when you go raise venture capital. So I learned all these lessons around starting technology businesses. And then my last one before collab, I'll say my claim to fame, a company called Monsieur, where I invented an automated cocktail making machine. So think of it like a Coke freestyle machine, but it makes adult beverages. Yeah. So touchscreen interface, you say I want a Long Island, 15 seconds later it gives you a perfectly mixed Long Island. And it was the first time I was able to use my degree as a mechanical engineer, all this design experience I had. So I designed it, built it in my dad's garage. He had a bunch of tools and all this kind of stuff. So it's that Silicon Valley built in your garage, American technology story, right? So I built it in my garage or my dad's garage, and man, grew that bit. That business just took off. But once again, I went back to work after the real estate business, and I worked at Caterpillar as an engineer. But I did it with all intents and purposes of funding collab, because I didn't have friends and family that I can go back to and get 50 grand. If I needed 50 grand, I had to go grind for it. I had to go to work and go get it. And so I went to work, and then I applied to this thing called TechCrunch Disrupt. It's the largest technology conference in the United States. And they had this thing called Battlefield. They choose like 10 companies out of like 2,500 applicants. And I told my wife, I said, if I get accepted into this, like I've been doing like little bartending events around the city. So I had been using the machine. I knew it worked. I had won a couple competitions. I was like, but this is the big boy. If I get into this, I'm quitting my job. But I worked for 18 months all the way up until I got the email that said we're going to be pitching on stage. Nice. And that day, I walked into my boss and I gave him my 2-week notice. I sent him the email, told him why, and he supported me. He was like, I will quit too. Awesome. But yeah, so that was my journey, man. That company ended up, we grew it to a little over $1 million in revenue. We had machines.
And how long did y'all grow it to $1 million?
So it took about 4 or 5 years, 4 years. We had machines in, our first install was at Churchill Downs to do Kentucky Derby. So our machines are still in the suites of the horse owners. Oh, nice. So every time one of them, the rich white folks go and watch their horses race, like they're pouring drinks from our machine. Wow. We were in the Hawks. We were in Oklahoma City Thunder. We were in some Marriott properties. We were in about 10 Regal Cinemas. So we had machines all over the place. You run out of money and you run out of time, right? Like we get to the end of our journey, not the end, but we get to this point where we're like, we are primed to go like scale this business. We figured everything out. We need money to do this plan. This is the plan that's going to take us to $100 million. And that plan required minimum $5 million. We wanted $8 million, but like we can go out here and raise $5 million. With all that success that we had, we went out and raised $2.25 million. Wow. And this gets into that mindset, right? Like a lot of people, oh shit, you raised $2.25. Right. It's like, no, when you play this game, there was our competitor, or not our competitor exactly, but there was another drink machine out there, the company called Juicero, that had nothing. They had a prototype. We out here got machines in Churchill Downs and Regal Cinemas and Marriott's, and this Juicero dude raised like, I think it was like $10 million, $8 million at 10. With a prototype, had done nothing. Wow. And pretty much went and bought the team to finish out his idea, bought the team to do all the things. Long story short, he ended up raising like $125 million and then woke up one day and was like, this isn't working. Wow. And just stopped doing it. After he had went through like 125, like it's all these blogs written around it, but you will never find a story like that about a black founder.
All right, y'all, you already know my man Dave Anderson is definitely helping entrepreneurs get amazing levels of success. Yo, he's helped his clients generate over $118 million in 2020 during the pandemic. And then now you can get unprecedented access to him and his team with his program, Bully One-on-One. You're going to learn business from one of the best business coaches in the world for less than the cost of your cell phone bill. So here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a digital membership card that entitles you to get free access to the Business Bully virtual events and online workshops, unlimited access to their exclusive digital university with hours on demand, with business knowledge at your fingertips, zero fluff, no BS, monthly private masterminds with David and his team. You'll get special celebrity guest mastermind sessions. You'll learn business, all of the things that you need to take your life to the next level. All you gotta do, look, enroll now at bully101.com, bully101.com, let's get it. All right, let's get back to the show. And that's crazy to me because I don't think y'all understand, or hopefully y'all understand, like literally, and you said the black tax, like you literally did all of the work, you proved the concept, you got customers, you're showing this idea that could get you to 100 million if you just got the proper funding, but was only able to get 2.25 million, while there's somebody else who has a similar idea, but just got a prototype, didn't even prove the concept, was able to get 10 million, 125 million. And like we talked about before, they have the ability to you know what, I'm not doing this. Wow.
And he's still on Instagram.
Right.
Like his life not over.
Right.
Like he's still out there working, doing stuff, right? Like it's but that's that when we talk about these black experiences and these black journeys, like I would love to hear that story for a black founder because it's not that guy's fault.
Yeah.
He took a shot.
Yeah.
He had an innovation. He went out, he tried it. It didn't work. It happens all the time. The thing is, as black people, we do not get the same level of resources, right? And I actually view that when I train a lot of other investors on how to find black investments, how to find black founders. Because it's like this mythical creature, right? Like, oh, you can find dope black founders. Right. Can you show me how? Where are they at? Like, where are you hunting? Right. And so the thing I tell them is that you have to look at distance traveled, right? If you come to me as a white founder and you've made it to this level where you're applying to my program, let's say my Techstars program, and there's a black founder that's applying to my Techstars program, and y'all are sitting right here together. But you went to Stanford, don't have no student debt, your dad gave you your first 50 grand. You've only traveled like this far. Absolutely. You ain't did shit yet. Now I got this black founder who went to an HBCU that didn't have a technical program, had to figure out how to get an app built, didn't have it in their friends network, had to go to work, find the money to get the thing done, had to go prove it to a couple customers to even get to where he is to make it to applying to my program. All while he probably has 2 kids and a wife, or it's a single mom, and the distance traveled for them to get here, they started from down here and they still neck and neck with you. As a white investor, many times they say, oh, but they have Stanford behind them. So that's the thing I'm looking for. What I'm saying is go underneath that water. What's underneath the rest of that iceberg? Because that shit that's down there, that's the shit you need. That's the thing that's gonna propel you to $1 billion company. That's the stuff you can't buy. And so that's what we do. I bet on people that know how to grind, right? I bet on people that have traveled choppier waters because they know how to navigate. So if you give them clean water, if you give them safe water to travel in, man, please, like they gonna knock it out the park.
And so that first, the Monsieur, did I say that right?
Everybody messes
Monsieur.
It
means Mr., right? Monsieur. So Monsieur, what wound up happening with that company? Did you sell it? Like, what was the exit like for that company?
Yep. So we took that 2.25, and like we always do, we said we're gonna stretch it. We're gonna flip it. So we ended up, building a new machine. That didn't quite. We spent the money there. That didn't quite work out like we wanted it to. And so we hit this point where we got down to it was like $500-600K in the bank, and these are those hard conversations that we don't talk about in public. Where this is my baby, man. Like this is the highest level that I've ever been, and you have to sit in the room and say, I think it's time that we sell. Like we do not have enough capital to do. We have a plan. We know it will work, but we do not have enough. There's nothing we can do with this money that's going to make what we want to happen. And so the best thing for us to do right now is to sell this business, even though it's probably too early. So we went out on this journey. We got about 5 bids in. We only had 1 bid that was cash. And at this point, I had investors and I had a board of directors, things of that nature. So it wasn't just my decision anymore at this point. They didn't take the cash offer, or should I say they tried to negotiate and fucked it up. So this gets into other lessons, right? Like once you bring on a board of advisors, it's not your baby anymore. Right? Like it's that all those paperwork that you sign, like you're signing away a little bit of control every time you put a signature on a piece of paper. And so, but like I said, we went and got like 5 offers, and 2 of them were kind of similar. We had 1 that was cash. We had another 2 that were, and we ended up going with the deal. Basically, it was a licensing deal.
Okay.
So we licensed out all of our IP. We had a crazy good engineering team and software development team. And a lot of our competitors that were in the hardware space were really good at building machines. They couldn't write the algorithms we had written to do the mixing and all the other stuff. Most of our stuff was done with software. They could not build that themselves. And so they basically bought our IP. We licensed it out to a company out in Silicon Valley. And they're still out there building machines with wine and liquor and beer, and they do the whole spectrum of alcohol. Yeah, we just had to sell it to a larger competitor that I think we would have completely dominated, with all the skill sets that we had in our office. But we didn't have the capital to battle them, and so we ended up having to sell to them.
Hey, how you guys doing? Hold on, don't press that button, because that's what I do every time I'm looking at an ad that I don't want to see. This ad just happened to be life-changing. I just happen to own one of the biggest home healthcare companies in the state of Georgia. I can help you create your own. Just to give you a little bit of insight, I send out registered nurses, LPNs, and CNAs to take care of people inside of the homes that cannot take care of themselves. But guess what? You don't have to have any medical background, and you don't have to have any medical knowledge. So if you're wanting to change your life and you have a passion for actually taking care of people, then go ahead and sign up for Home Healthcare Blueprint. I'll see you guys later.
And so when you say you licensed it, what does that mean? That you still receive royalties from it, or once you licensed it,
if they could sell anything, we would.
Yeah.
So if they could, that company is not selling like they need to. So once you do a licensing deal, a royalty deal,
right,
you put your fate in the hands of another person.
Right.
And
they just,
we haven't seen a bunch of money come back from it.
Right,
and so. Like the best thing that I got from Monsieur is, I know this is about finances, but I sold some of my stock in the previous rounds. Yeah. So I made a little bit of money, but nothing too crazy. And then I got the experience, right? Like my stature as a person, like that experience is what allows me to go raise 50 mil.
Exactly.
Right. And so it's not always about, and this is what we talk about in the white networks, right? Like that failure should propel you.
Absolutely.
Like, and I say failure in the sense of Silicon Valley failure. I don't believe that Monsieur failed, but Monsieur didn't make me a multi-millionaire. Yeah. So in many people's eyes, that's a failure when you got to the level that we got. But in my eyes, it was an experience, right? And that's how we have to look at these types of companies is that one didn't make me a multi-millionaire, but it gave me the stature. Right. It gave me the respect. It gave me the network. Yep. Now I go out and I can say, hey, I'm raising a $50 million fund. Would you invest $5 million in me? And when they look at my history, they look at all this and they're like, oh shit, like, we'll give you money, right? Like, look at what you've done in the past. Yeah. And so that's just a piece of armor that I can now wear when I'm going out and starting my next thing, which was Collab Capital.
So now Collab Capital, turning black founder geniuses into their genius into generational wealth. Talk to us about that journey, right? Because, a lot of people see disparities, right? They say, specifically Silicon Valley, the old white men who are controlling it and giving it to their sons and their nephews or whatever the case may be. People could sit back, complain. People could say, you know what, let's figure out, how do we break that mold? How do we, how do we penetrate into what they've built? Or you could do for self, build your own, come in, Collab Capital. Talk to me about that.
You hit the nail on the head. It's so many people, and this gets back to like that upbringing, right? Like back to if you want some J's, you got to go work and buy them joints. Like this was my proverbial J's, right? It was like everybody was complaining. Even when I was that person complaining, right? I can't get money. I can't. Like the solutions aren't out there for me to go get capital, and white people are racist, and this industry is racist, and you could go and try to convince them that, oh, you should do X, Y, Z, or you can go out and say, my people need money. Let's go figure out how to get it. Yeah. And that started with being intentional, right? Like we never use the word minority. We don't use the word underrepresented. We don't use the phrase people of color. We don't use black and brown. Like, we are unapologetically for black founders. Hard stop. We
Period, right? That's what he
like,
said.
it's
period.
on period. And when we went out and started talking to our advisors and, you know, people that, you know, that were our mentors and stuff, black people, it was like, man, hell no. Like, you about to do what? Like, ain't nobody going for that, right? Like, you can't go, you got to say minority. And then when you get the money, then you can kind of, then go invest in all black people. And it was like, no. Like, we don't want anybody to think anything that's happening here that's not happening. And the only thing happening here is we are building a foundation for black founders to build off of. And we want every investor that comes into our realm to understand that that's what they're here to do too. Right? Because we don't want questions to be like, oh, where's the diversity in your fund? I thought this was about all minorities, right? Where are the white women, right? And it's like, no, like, this is for black people, and that intentionality, and I'm focusing here, and I'll get to how we got to the full 50, but like having that intentionality and then going out and building your own table, man, it's like, they have no incentive to do it.
Right.
And I tell you this all the time, like, Silicon Valley has no reason to diversify.
Right.
They get so much stuff that they're going to make billions of dollars with or without us. So when you tell them they have to leave their thrones and go to the South where 50, 60% of black people are, that you have to go spend your time at Howard and Morehouse and Spelman instead of Stanford that's right in your backyard, that's extra flights. That's extra work. That's another person I have to hire. So when we're asking them to be more diverse, we're asking them to do more work and to spend more money, and their job is to make money.
Right.
And they're making it right there without leaving. Like, they do not have to leave their doorstep. And so when someone doesn't have an incentive to do something, you cannot put all your eggs in that basket. The only people that have the incentive to do it is us. So let's go out and freaking do it. Like, this is what we've all done. We've all built companies. Like, let's go do it. And so that was the most important part. It was like building our own table and proving to them that y'all missing out. Like, if y'all gonna leave all this money on the table, cool. Like, whereas most people look at it as, oh, you guys are leaving money on the table. You shouldn't leave money on the table. It was like, bet, let me
get that.
I'm gonna take all the money you left on the table. Like, you think these black people don't have genius? Like, cool, we're gonna turn it into wealth, right? Like, you know, and that's exactly what we do.
And I love that because I don't know, I just always felt like, you know, us as a community, like, we were waiting for somebody to change a system that wasn't built for us. Like, I mean, I don't want to get political, but it's like, or not even just, I just feel like, you know, when you think about how the country was built, the country wasn't built because these nice people wanted to look out for everybody, right? And so the country is like the disparity in Silicon Valley is intentional, right? It's the way that the country was built. And, you know, and I'm not saying that effort shouldn't be put in to diversify, especially if we as a community are, putting money into, you know, or patronizing them. But that's the other thing too, right? Is that when we look at all of these products and services and things of that nature, that, you know, there aren't founders that look like us, but they'll take our money, they'll be in our communities, they'll, you know, and they don't even give us the respect that they don't even care. Why not just say, you know what, like, I'm the sauce, I'm the juice. Let me, you know, like I know Magic Johnson did it, right? Where, you know, they weren't investing in you know, low income communities, so he built housing in low income communities, built the Starbucks, and now was able to amass wealth. And so talk to me about that, right? So Collab Capital, how did y'all raise the 50 million?
Yeah, it goes back to the intentionality, right? Like, I'll admit firsthand, like, starting that journey, shit, it was gonna be an uphill battle, right? Like, all the stuff that our mentors said, it was true. They weren't saying it out of like disbelief in us. It was the industry they were worried about. The people you're gonna ask for money aren't gonna go for this. It's too narrow of a focus. It's too blah, blah, blah. All these things were valid points. Then George Floyd was murdered. Right? And so you take all of and this is where the spiritual stuff comes in too, of like, God gives you an assignment. Like, even though it's tough, like, you don't run, you don't go away from it, you stick to your assignment, and then he'll give it to you. Right? Like, once you show that you're faithful, once you show him you're faithful, So I don't get too spiritual. But yeah, man, we were struggling. Like that pandemic hit, and we were supposed to have our first close on March 30th, 2020.
Oh, timing again.
The country shut down.
Look, wait, hold on. Hey, Barry, it's something about you, man. You started a real estate company in 2008, the recession. You try to raise capital and then the country shut down.
Hey, so the 2008 thing was ego.
Right.
Because I knew that was it. I didn't know a pandemic was coming.
Facts.
But yeah, so we had several $1 million like that was earmarked. People were going to give us money.
Yeah.
And then March 15th, the country shut down, the economy crashes, we lose all that money.
Wow.
So we basically have like $1 million. We can make one investment, and we have to shut down because like during the pandemic, you can't really go beg people for money when people are dying, people are losing their job.
Right.
And so it's like we just did what we always do. We stopped asking for money and we said, how can we help black founders? We did a pitch competition. Like we just stuck to we stuck to who we were.
Yeah.
It was like black people out here need help. We joined boards to help make sure some of this money that was being allocated around the loss of jobs in the pandemic. So we just stayed us. Then George Floyd was murdered, or the video came out, I believe in like end of May. And in June, all of these companies started saying, we're putting $500 million here, we're putting $1 billion here.
Yeah.
And when you go look at the landscape and they say we're putting a certain percentage towards venture capital, who is the only person still waving this flag that we're unapologetically black?
Wow.
Our team is black.
Wow.
We only invest in black people. Like our website is black. Like there's nothing about us. And so what starts to happen is when these people get in those rooms and they're panicking, because they don't know enough black people to allocate $500 million.
Right.
So it's like, oh man, this collab capital, they keep coming up.
Nice.
Like they keep coming up in meetings. And so as much work as we did outwardly to go, so basically we went back out in July. That was the plan. Like we were gonna shut down in March and we were gonna put together this new plan to go back out in June, July. And so as soon as we had already planned to resurface, that's when all these funds started coming out and being created.
Wow.
And so we ended up, if you really look at when we started fundraising, it really started like that July. And we closed the fund in less than 12 months.
Wow.
So we closed $52 million. So 50 was our target. We oversubscribed. We closed $52 million basically between June, July 2020 and May of 2021 in a pandemic.
That's a blessing.
And it's all a blessing, right? It's all like sticking to your guns. Like we had an assignment. We were told to do something. And there were other people that were gung-ho, black this, black that. We're creating these new models for black founders. And you just, as fundraising started, you'll see those people slowly dying down and focusing more on minority and focusing, like you look at their portfolios, their investments have, you know, more white women and more Asian women, right? And you start seeing that they're playing the game of the industry, rightfully so. That's it's the easy way to do it, right? Like if you want to get more black fund managers, you have to play a little bit of their game. We didn't play that game, and so we stuck to our guns, played our game, built our table, and now it's a bunch of motherfuckers eating that.
Wow. I love that because I think that there's so much to kind of unpack in there because I mean, you know, I told my wife the spiritual stuff really works, alhamdulillah, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like really, right? When you know, the spiritual stuff really works though, you know, it really works.
Yes, it works.
And so I don't want to glaze over that. It's like, whatever you subscribe to, right? So, you know, I'm not telling anybody to subscribe to anything, but when you have a belief in your higher power and your higher power gives you an assignment, you know, you're not always going to be given the exact way that the assignment is going to be accomplished. But if you stay faithful and you just have that faith and say, listen, heard you, God, you said do this, I'm gonna do this. And then the positioning that allowed you to, that faithfulness got rewarded in ways that you couldn't even imagine, you couldn't even thought of it.
Yeah, that was not gonna be in the playbook.
Exactly, it wasn't in the playbook. And so I love that. And I love the fact that, you know, for those who are listening, to understand that, you know, when you create a plan, there are going to be deviations in the plan. But if you stick to your guns, if you understand your why, and you guys pivoted a little bit, right? The core in what you created at Collab Capital stayed there, but the pivot allowed you to stay true to who you are. contrary to what your mentors and everybody was saying, you're like, nope, I'm gonna, stay at this position. And now you've shown them, right, that listen, if you stick to your guns and you're intentional, that you can make things happen. And so for those who, we use the word black founders a lot, right? And now you have $52 million. What does that mean for somebody who's watching this, who's an entrepreneur, who says, I have this idea. Let me hold something, Barry. Let me get some of that 52. Let me hold something.
So we are a technology focused fund. So that's first and foremost. We get a lot of applications from people that are doing stuff that are non-tech related.
I was gonna say, because my cousin do hair.
Exactly, right.
She the best in the projects, baby. I get some money,
we get a bunch of them. Like we get a bunch of those. We get a bunch of people that are trying to shoot a movie. Yeah. Like we do not do content. We do not do what I deem as like traditional small businesses, restaurants, all that stuff. We are not the right capital solution for that. Yeah. We invest in technology focused or technology centered innovative products. And so, if you can patent it, if it's something that you design is really, really cool, that can scale really, really big, then we'll take a look at it, right? And so, but most of our investments will be in software products that you're selling to people on a subscription, that you're selling to, businesses, even if it's consumer, where they're paying you $1.99 a month to be a part of it. And then also we invest, as far as where you are on your journey, we invest post-product early revenue. And so what that means is you need to have something built. Like it goes that distance travel. We want to see that you can figure out, it doesn't have to be the prettiest thing. It doesn't have to be the most functional. We just want to know that, hey, you built something, you took it to somebody that you plan on selling it to, got in front of them, and they thought it was cool enough to give you a shot. So we say early revenue, it could be a pilot, maybe it's an unpaid pilot, we prefer paid. But we just want to see a little bit of that traction. All that stuff is very strategic because with our model, where we focus is helping companies grow what they've done, right? And so we have other services that we provide, and we have other partners that we work with that can help you get to that point. And so that's one thing that's cool about us. When you come to us, we don't just throw you away, even if you don't fit, if you're not right at the right stage at that moment. But yeah, that's it really. We're industry agnostic, so we don't, you can have an innovation. If it's an innovation in the hair space and you have something that's a software product, we'll look at it, right?
Nice.
And so yeah, so that's it, man. You building something dope, innovative that you think you can sell to millions of people and make a bunch of money off of.
Come
holler at me.
And so so now somebody has this idea, their tech company, is Collab only giving them money and that's it? Here's a check.
No.
Go about your business. Go do what you do. Make sure you give us money back. Like how does that partnership work now? Now you got this company. You about to you like them. You want to help them with funding. What's that process like?
So we built our team very intentionally, right? So first off, all three of the partners are operators. So we know how to build. We've all built different types of businesses, but we've all built businesses. And then even when you get past the partners, our principal, Elliot, has been in private equity and finance and been a CFO before. So now when you come to us, you also have a person you can lean on and help get your books together, right? To make sure that financially you're making good decisions and that when you go do your taxes that you take. So we have these type of people on staff. Our director of operations, also principal, Rachel, she started several businesses. Her family owns a business. She worked for Puff at Combs Wine and Spirits. But she's been an operator. She's like a logistics genius, right? And so when you come to us, you're getting a wealth of knowledge and experience to help you get, and that's why that's our focus area, because we want to help you take that idea, put all these secrets and special sauce around it. But then we took it one step further. So we built in this thing called a growth partner. And so the growth partner was built for our people. Because Black people, anytime you go and say, hey, I got this company, and I think you'll be dope to help them out, they be like, I need 20%. Can they give me 10 grand? Like, we always need something, right? Instead of, once again, saying, oh, our people ain't shit or something like that, like why can't we just do it for the good of your heart? It was like, no, how about we build something to incentivize them? And so we built this thing called a growth partner model where they actually, we find, so I walk through an example so it helps make it make sense. We invested in a company called Healthy Hip Hop. They're a healthy music-based company. They also have a social media app that's for kids 12 and under. Just a really safe space for your kids to interact with their friends, do all the stuff we do on TikTok and Instagram as adults, but doing in a safe space for a 7-year-old.
Nice, love it.
But it also comes with music that sounds like you're listening to a Migos album, but it's all about good mentality. It's about, they did stuff around washing your hands and wearing masks during the pandemic, but it's all about building the social conscience and confidence in our children.
Love it.
So they don't have to listen to the same, riffraff that we listened to growing up. As a 6-year-old, you should be listening to how to go outside and play with your friends, spend more time outside, right? So they did all that, but who's like the king of healthy music? It's Lecrae. So we bring Lecrae in as a growth partner to this company that's going to open up music doors. It's going to open up his network of followers and listeners that listen to his music that's kind of right in that demographic of where they're going. And we bring Lecrae in, we bring him in on our side of the economics. And so now Lecrae has a contract with us that he's going to do these 5 things for this business. And if Lecrae does those things, then Lecrae owns a percentage of this said company.
Beyonce, pay me in equity.
Pay me in equity, right?
Yeah.
And also because we have a part of our model is sharing profits with the companies, that also Lecrae has a chance to actually make this another stream of income. So if he helps this company grow and get 1 million kids on this social media app and their mom is paying $30 a year, and now they're at $30 million and they're doing that at 30% profitability and all those numbers break down, not only will he own a percentage of the company, but he might make $100,000 a year. So now he's incentivized to get out and say, hey, let's plan this event. Let's get this launch going on. Let's get my followers into your network. Let me call my friend over here to play basketball. Let me call my friend over here to make music and get their kids on. Like, now he's incentivized to do all this stuff, and this is how we manufacture black wealth. They did it with billions of dollars. We're doing it with culture.
Absolutely.
So now we can use the thing that we have to manufacture these wins, and we do that. But that model didn't need to be built for them. That model needed to be built for us. They were not incentivized to build something different because they didn't have to. We had to build something different to allow us to manufacture success in the riches that we own, which is the culture. We own the pulse. So let's use the pulse to manufacture wealth.
Y'all love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. And so now Collab Capital, 50 million. What's next? What's next for you? What's next for Collab? Is it still kind of going out, finding other companies? What would you say is the next?
So we're 10 investments in.
Okay.
We'll do another 40 with the money that we have. And then next for us is we're going to pop up in 2 years and take the success of the 10 companies and the rest of the companies that we've invested in at that point. And we're going to go raise 200. That's it. We playing with 50 right now.
Right.
And we're gonna prove our model out. We're gonna prove that our people deserve to be invested in. And then we're gonna go take that proof and we're gonna say, give us some more.
And so what winds up happening though, right? You got the 50, you invest in the companies. How do you get the 50 back? Does it go back into the company, or do you take part ownership? Like how does that work for Collab Capital as a fund?
So the way venture capital works is they're called limited partners. Limited partners invest. They're the people that gave us the 52 million. So now technically, in order for them to feel like we were successful, we really need to return 3x over like a 10 to 12 year period. That's the only way we're beating the market. Like that, people invest in venture capital to get a better return than they would get in other vehicles. And so now our job is to basically go and figure out how we can return 150 back to them. We got to triple this money that they gave us, and we do that through these investments. And so our investments will exit, people will buy them, they'll IPO. In our model, we'll get shared profits back from some of the business. So there's all these ways to liquefy these assets that they have to then give that money back to them. But typically that takes 7 minimum years typically before a company really starts returning back this money and this capital back to the LPs. So that's the clock that they're on. In our model that we built with this shared profit engine that's also built into it, we may return, the goal is for us to return around year 3 or 4 to start returning something, not like millions and millions of dollars, but to start giving them some of their capital back. And then what happens is you go out and you take the success and success at this point of the journey means what are their revenue numbers? Like you made an investment in the company 2 years ago. What have they done in the 2 years since you've invested? Like have they went on and raised another round? So typically it's called, their valuation policies. So our valuation policy would say, I invested in you. We value the business at $5 million. A year later, you go out and raise another lump of capital, and they thought you were worth 15. So now we've tripled the value of this company. So when we go raise fund 2, they're gonna be like, oh, the unrealized value of the portfolio is doing numbers, even though they haven't gotten a cent back.
Right, got it.
They're gonna look at the potential of what we've done.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, we want to do this again.
Yeah,
we want to this time we want to give you 20 instead of 5.
Right, got
right?
it.
And then so that's how you take that early success of what these founders are doing. So really it's all on the founders.
Right.
Like we're going to help them, but really you have to make good bets on people.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing at Collab. And then that'll ride us into like the 2-3 year mark where we'll go out and start fundraising again and get a larger lump sum of money, which allows us to write bigger checks earlier.
Yeah.
It allows us to write bigger checks later.
Right.
And it allows us to write more checks.
Love it. Nah, I love it. And so let's talk about Barry for a second, right? So, all the success that you've had, all of the things that you've done being a hustler. Talk to us a little bit about, your the money that you've, not I don't want to in your pocket or nothing like that, but what would you say is the biggest or the most extravagant thing you've done with money so far? You personally.
Man, I don't do extravagant. That's
Okay,
a tough one.
okay.
I'm super modest.
Yeah.
I'm super laid back. Like I would say the most extravagant thing. So as a founder of a fund, one of the things that investors want to see is skin in the game. And so I had to put 350 grand into the fund, but that's what I do. I'm the type to go buy fancy watches I just put my down payment down on my Tesla. I would say that.
Okay.
I would say I'll keep it there. We'll say me putting this money back into the fund was probably, because like I said, I'm not uber rich, right? But I'm always going to bet everything I have on myself. Because there's nothing else I would bet on more than me, because I know I'm a grind, I know I'm a win.
Wow. And I mean, my next question was going to be, what's the most impactful thing you've done with money? But I mean,
the same thing.
Right. To me, I'm saying, look, if you got skin in the game and you putting, 350,000 back into this fund that's gonna eventually help these founders, that sounds like big impact to me. But what would you say is the most impactful thing you've done with money?
Oh man, it's probably the same thing, and it's just because of the amount. Like I've done a lot of, like I just do little random stuff all the time. Like I bought a whole pack of waters from the water boys yesterday. Just random stuff. But I would say the scale of impact. This fund is going to do things that the things that I've dreamed of, right? Like when I start talking about affecting those things, talk about at the beginning, like of changing the black community. Like I'm now starting to get into that mode where the decisions that I'm making with my money have the ability to do that. But I say that because I don't want to belittle those little things, like the little things you do every day, from mentoring kids to taking a kid out that may not have anything at home and taking them to a steakhouse or something, right? Like showing them, giving them that exposure, like all those little things that I do or that, we do as people, those things are just as impactful,
Absolutely,
right?
I agree.
Because you don't know that person may be the next Barry. And you might have set them on that path, that dinner or that whatever you gave them, that might have been the first token into them that is going to set them, that you don't even know is going to happen 20 years later, where they become the person that gets the capital from the Collab Capital $20 million fund and becomes the billionaire. Right? And so it's those type of things. I never like to look down on those little things, but the biggest one definitely was this investment into Collab.
And I love it though too, because even when you think what you're doing, it like literally taking black founder geniuses and helping them turn that genius into generational wealth, because to your point, technology companies, you never know, right? With a technology company, that $1 million could turn to $1 billion. And so you could be creating, or you are creating, we're gonna talk this into existence.
Yes, sir.
You are creating black tech billionaires. And so when it's all said and done, right? We talk about Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, but Barry Gibbons and the crew at Collab Capital created these black billionaires, and I think that's commendable. That's definitely something that we need to see more of, and that's the other thing though too, because once you do it successfully, now it allows other folks to start, right? Like why aren't the athletes and the hip hop folks and people who have money could say, you know what, let's start this other fund. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. LeBron, the first, active player who's a billionaire. Yeah. All right. I mean, he's doing phenomenal things, but now, seeing the success of Collab Capital, there could be so many multiple collabs that now set the stage for this true renaissance of, shrinking in the wealth gap that we've been talking about for 40 years. Right? And so I love that. And then so, now, $50 million, you're controlling $50 million, you and the team. If you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
Oh, man. My 18-year-old self. Oh, bet on yourself.
Okay.
Right? Like, because when I was, I'm trying to think of where I was doing at 18.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I would tell him about any of the mistakes I made. Like, I did dumb college student stuff and, all that stuff. I wouldn't give that type of advice. Like, go live your life, have fun.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, because it wasn't until I was about 21 where I started doing, when we started that shoe company, where I started betting on myself. Had I started that journey back when I was younger at 18, to like always focus on you. Like, you are your greatest asset. Like, if you pour into you, like that's the thing you can control. And so I wasn't doing enough of that at 18, right? I was focused on Georgia Tech. I was focused on all these internships and, like, how can I go get this corporate life? And there's nothing wrong with corporate life. Yeah. But knowing where I was heading, if I'd have known that at 18, I would have started that journey 2-3 years earlier, and I would have been making those larger bets on myself.
Yes, yeah. And I love that. And speaking of corporate, because like you alluded to this earlier, that we're at a space where there's like this 9-to-5 shaming, right? Like people are like, go be a boss and go right. And so you as someone, who worked a 9-to-5 and successfully started a business, at the same time simultaneously, what would you say to somebody, or what advice would you give to somebody that has a 9-to-5, but they got the entrepreneurship itch. They want to, they want to venture out, but like you said, the 9-to-5 is really just what's holding them down, them and their family. Like, what advice would you give that person?
This is where I turn into an asshole. If you can't build something while you're working a 9-to-5, you don't really have the chops to be an entrepreneur.
Ooh, talk heavy. Okay.
Like, because there's a level of work that you do when you have an idea, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of ideating. It's a lot of like mapping stuff out, getting on whiteboards, things you can do at 2 a.m. while you work a job. You don't really need all that extra time until you now you have to worry about selling and finding customers, doing all this other stuff, right? But they're at different stages. You should be doing all of that early stuff, that ideating, that testing. You should be doing all that on somebody's dime. I tell people all the time, like, Caterpillar was my first investor.
Yeah.
They paid me every day to go to work, and I flipped that money into a startup in my after hours, but they paid for the patent. They paid for the materials. Right. And because what happens is when you switch that thing to become a full-time entrepreneur, you still working 16 hours a day.
Facts, yeah.
So if you tell them you can't work 16 hours a day now, that might be where you need to be. Like, stack that bread, get them to match your 401k. Like, and this is what I try to, like, to your point about that shaming, there's a lot of wealth to be built.
Absolutely.
And we need people in corporate building wealth too.
Absolutely.
Because that's where the mass majority of people are going to build their wealth. We need you to have that steady job so you can buy real estate, become a real estate investor. Everybody doesn't have to quit their job and be a boss. You can be rich without being a boss.
That's a fact.
Most people are rich without being a boss. Now, the mass levels of wealth that people chase, But most times people miss out on their wealth by chasing this other target. But no, work your job. If you have the chops, you will get something off the ground, and that business will tell you when it's time to quit.
You know why I love what you just said. So because I think and I see this a lot, especially with this new age entrepreneurs who are just kind of like jumping out there, and starting a business, and they're watching other people do their thing, and they're like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do, but they don't really build a proper foundation, right? Like they don't take time to think about the idea and think about their, target market, create a SWOT analysis, know your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunity and threats. Like a lot, like people see those things and they're like, nah, I ain't got time for that, right? Like this money, let me go make this money. But then when, Facebook changes their algorithm, now your business is done, right? Because you relied on Facebook and your business wasn't built on a foundation. Yep. And so now you have this 9-to-5, you have this investor, you take the time to really build a business, right? Yep. And that like kind of alludes to my second question for entrepreneurs, or my next question about for entrepreneurs is, I think that it would behoove any entrepreneur to build their business as if they're going to sell. Even if they're not going to sell, it's great to set your business up that way, because that way you're setting up your business the right way, right? What advice would you give to somebody, being someone who has built the business and been able to sell the business? What are those key things that an entrepreneur should have that makes a business sellable? Not like, I'm the brand and you can't buy me, right? And so how do you build that business that's sellable? Yep.
The first thing is two main things. One, you have to produce something that is hard to produce. Oh. A lot of people think they have secret sauce. And like I said, you just another hairdresser, right, on the block, right? It's 30 y'all. That's a great, you can make a lot of money doing it, but there's nothing anyone's going to buy. Right? And so the first way to do it is to build something that is other people are going to struggle to build. It's going to take a lot of money for them to build. Yeah. Because now I have to make the decision whether I want to go spend $5 million building this thing, or if I just want to give you 10 and get it out the way and it's ready to go and I can put my infrastructure on top of it, or whatever the case may be. Or that's why a lot of big companies buy. That's why Facebook bought Instagram, right? Like Facebook could have built another image-based social app, but it was like, it's gonna take us forever. We're gonna have to buy market share. We gotta spend all this money on marketing to compete with them. Let's just get him a Billy. Right. We know once we put our billions of people on that platform that it's gonna actually make us $1 billion, multi-billion dollars back. Right. So let's go give that person $1 billion and get it out the way. Yeah. Right. So you have to make them make that business decision to make it better, a better business decision for them to buy you than it is to build themselves. Mm-hmm. The second way to do it is to own a market. So let's say you are that said hairdresser. I know we're talking about tech stuff, but now we got this theme of this hairdresser from the block. Yeah. Maybe it's a certain demographic that nobody else can go get. You built this engine that makes it easy for, single moms in a certain neighborhood to be able to drop their kids off at a certain place, get their hair done. And you built this thing and no one else has been able to capture and make money off of this market. Now, if I'm the larger chain hairdresser, I'm like, that logistics engine that you built, you don't even know you built the logistics engine. Right. But now that's what you built. I want to take that to every metropolitan area because I want that demographic. You've gotten to a customer base that they don't know how to get to. Yeah. And those are the two things that a business cares about. Like, what am I building to increase my brand or to increase my exposure in the product? And then how do I get to people? Yeah. And if you can give me one of those two things, and then the third thing that happens sometimes as well, typically it's on when the company's kind of going in the other direction, is they'll acqui-hire. So if you do a really good job of hiring good talent, then a company may come and say, oh, you built like a machine learning team that is top notch. Maybe your idea wasn't great, but your talent is awesome. Like, I just want to take that whole team, and the best way to do that is for me to buy your company.
Wow.
So those are kind of the three things I was saying. If you can build with those three things in mind, like how innovative is what I'm building? How do I go get a market that no one else knows how to capture? And how do I hire the best people?
Yeah.
That will put you in the best position for eventually someday to be acquired. But to your point, it also just puts you in the best position to have the best damn business in the world.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, because people only want to buy the best businesses in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah. No, that was golden. I love that because, I mean, you know, entrepreneurs out there, if you're doing the same thing, you might think you got the secret sauce, but if you build that technology or if you build that structure that's hard to duplicate, you know, that's either two things. Somebody's gonna buy you, or you're gonna have the business that you could scale and continue to kind of build. So I love that. All right, we're gonna do our lightning round. And so what we do, we are inside the vault, and inside the vault, we take banking terms and we flip them into terms that kind of help our audience. And so the first term I'm gonna say is deposit slip. Right, and so when you walk into a bank, a deposit slip is what you write down and you give it to the teller to deposit money. But for us, a deposit slip is a mistake, right? A slip up, a deposit slip up that you made. So tell me about your biggest deposit slip.
Whew. I sold 33% of Monsieur for $33,000.
Wow. Wait, that was.
It takes a moment of silence.
Yeah, it does.
It was. I knew nothing about venture. Like I said, my companies previous to that, I didn't really raise money.
Yeah.
I was super green around but somebody we come from. Somebody offer you $30,000 in one lump sum in a check.
Yeah.
Like, you just gonna get that to me today, like right now.
Right.
And before that, it was all my own money.
Right.
And so for me, it was like, oh, an investor. That's like proof that I'm doing something right.
And how much had you invested in the business prior to?
Probably close to that.
Okay.
And I took it and gave up a board seat, gave up all these things that you would never do for that. I did direct equity, so it wasn't even like on a convertible instrument. Like all the things I know now and I coach founders on doing, I didn't have anybody to coach me.
Wow.
And that's one of the big reasons I come out here and do this today, right? It's like, I want to make sure, even if it's me, like I will tell you if I'm not the right investor, right? Like I never want to take advantage of anyone, let alone a black founder who is trying to learn this game. But it was one of the music industry back in the day deals, right? It was, but yeah, that was probably the biggest mistake that I've made on my journey.
And just real quick on that, I know it's supposed to be a lightning round, supposed to move fast, but real quick on that though, right? So like, a lot of people are always like, all right, I want to get an investor. But to your point, sometimes when you get an investor and they're giving you money, you're giving up control in essence. When is the best time to give? Like, should you ever give control? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's not really like a set in stone time, but there is a time in the business where you have to really scale and where you can't do it like on your own. Like what I was doing then, like I could have gotten 30 grand on my own, right? So there's this moment in you know when it's happening, where it's like, I've built this thing super special and now I need to go raise $5 million to blow the market out. That's when you really start saying, okay, now I maybe need a board of advisors because I'm gonna have to hire a bunch of people, and those are things I don't know how to do. I'm gonna have to, so like, there's not like an exact like script to here's when you do it, but way too many people, especially black founders, do it way too early. So now there's a thing called convertible instruments where you're not giving direct equity, you're not giving people board seats, and they're basically buying into the future of your business. So they're basically saying, I'm buying in today at $3 million potentially. So that's as much as I'm gonna pay, the $3 million price per share, like whatever that share price is. But their hope is that that money's gonna help you grow to 6. So when you go out and raise at the $6 million price, their benefit is they got in early enough where they don't even convert over until you go raise that 6. They kind of bought in early. They got the discount on the real price later on. But what happens is now that person, they're just a small investor. And typically the person that gave you the $6 million money, that is when you'll get a board seat and they'll go direct equity. So but you can feel it, but that's why you need smart people around. You need people that aren't taking advantage of you. You need people that have been there before, and you have to go find that mentorship for you. Someone that doesn't have skin in your game. Someone that just wants to give you good advice, right? And so, well, I know it's lightning round, so I'll stop there.
No, I love it.
It's a long ass lightning.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But you know why I'm cool with it, man? Because I feel like, you know, this is true generational wealth, right? Like founders and, you know, equity and raising money, like that's the game that we haven't played yet. We played the, you know, I mean, and there's a lot of wealth being built in real estate, but like tech could make you a billionaire for real.
Real estate is still tangible.
Right.
You're still limited to the amount of space that you can go get.
Yeah.
Technology, like say, you can wake up tomorrow and have 1 billion people on your app. Like you can literally go global off of some things that you typed on your computer.
Right.
Like it's different.
Right.
So
a different level of generational wealth. This is Jeff Bezos, let me fly out of space generational wealth. Second term we're gonna do is charge off, right? So you know you go into a bank and or you borrow some money, you don't pay it back, and the bank is trying to get it for you. Eventually they'll charge it off.
Been there before.
Right, exactly, right? And so for us though, being this is a money mindset show, and on your journey, what type of people or mindsets did you have to charge off to be where you are today?
Oh man, I think it gets back to that, building your own table, right? Like, but the mindset was, you don't have to depend on someone else, right? Like when I built Monsieur, I'm sorry, you do have to depend on somebody else from a community perspective.
Yeah.
We don't have to depend on someone else to solve our community problems. And that mindset shift is what kind of allowed us to start Collab Capital. And it's allowed us to do a lot of other, you're starting to see a lot of athletes, entertainers kind of start to build their own tables. Like I'm starting my own brands. LeBron starting his own entertainment company. Like even what he did with Rich Paul, right? Like my homeboy gonna be my agent.
Right.
Like that's wealth. Like that's crazy. Like the top agent in the league off a kid that had never done a deal before in his life coming out of high school, right? So it's those type of things where people are starting to build their own table. But I personally had to grow to that mindset. Right, and so once I charged off that old mindset of talking on panels, trying to get Silicon Valley to change and trying to get them to understand that we're worthy, right?
Right.
Like fuck that.
Right.
Like why are we out begging other people? And so that I had to charge that off. And the second that I charged that off, it's like a weight is off your shoulders, because now what you've done, getting back to betting on telling yourself to bet on yourself. Yeah. Before you're letting someone else control your destiny. Yeah. Once you get that weight off your shoulders of like, I'm not going to depend on that from a community perspective. Yeah. Oh man, sky's the limit now. It's like we can go do whatever we want to do now. Like, we don't have to depend on their structures.
Right.
We don't have to work underneath the things that they've built and try to fit into these molds that we don't fit into. Yeah. It's like, no, we got our own mold brewing over here, and we're gonna make sure it fit all of us. Right. So that was my mindset that I charged off.
No, I love it. All right, so last one. Trust account, right? And so the trust account is where somebody takes their assets, they put it in the trust account to make sure it's protected, make sure that it grows, make sure it gets to the next level. Who is part of your trust account, or what mindset do you have part of your trust account that's protecting you, that's helping you grow, that's helping you get to that next level?
Oh, I think we already hit the faith thing, but I think like faith is probably the thing that's there, that's that non-tangible thing.
Yeah.
That once it's shown up so many times, it gets easier to follow it, right? Absolutely. So as you keep using it, it's like the bets become easier and easier to make. So that's like the main thing. But then it's like the people I surround myself with, man, I never try to be the smartest person in the room, or everyone that is around me brings something different. And so like one of my best friends, he started Slushy Kicks with me. He started Monsieur with me. He's now in the Collab Capital team.
Oh, nice.
But my homeboy Mario, dude I be with in the gym, fellow techie. But yeah, like he was always the yin to my yang. It was like, I'm a high level thinker. But when you get into the operational day-to-day stuff, I've never been good at like managing that kind of stuff. And he's a genius at it. So anytime I started something, even when he's not on the team, like he's always a part of my mindset, or I tap him for something to get good insights. And then my Collab Capital team, which all these people I've known for, Mario I've known, we came into tech together, but like Jewel and Justin, we grew up together in the technology space. So we all started companies the same year with no ecosystem here in Atlanta. And we just started building the ecosystem together, along with some other, like Ryan from the Gathering Spot, Candace from Mahavana. It's about 7 of us. But yeah, we just all started, man. Like we didn't have anybody coaching us and mentoring us. And now what it's become is that like we all lean on each other. Like we all learn different lessons. We're all in different networks. And man, I would go to bat with these people, like not just for collab or for business, but when it comes to marriage, when it comes to like just life in general, like these people have become my rock. Like these are my family members, basically. And it's crazy because some people, I remember one time Ryan got into an article and Jewel and a buddy of mine was like, hey man, why you not in that article, man? Like why you? And I was like, man, I am. Like if they in it,
shout out to Ryan.
Like if they in it, I'm in it.
Right.
Like they're my people. Like this my family. I'm not egotistical.
That's level though too.
Like we building this shit together.
Absolutely.
Like we building this foundation together. So if they building, that's just a stronger step for me to stand on when I need to go in that direction, right? Maybe they gonna get me on the podcast next, right? They gonna let whoever didn't call me that time call me next time, right? And so getting into that mindset where you have people like that around you, where there's no ego. We're not, even though we're all competitive, we're even competitive internally, but it's all healthy, right? Like I still want to see everybody win, and having other people with that mindset, it makes it so much easier to take risks, to make sacrifices, and to do the type of work that we're doing, because it's hard. And those people keep me grounded, man.
No, I love it. I love it. Barry Givens, y'all. I was gonna say round of applause, but Barry Givens, Collab Capital. If somebody wanted to connect with you, collab, you personally, where can they find you?
So for myself personally is Barry Givens Jr. on IG and Twitter. For collab is collab.capital on IG, collab_ Twitter, or collab_ capital on Twitter. And then you can find our website, collab.capital.
All right, y'all. Barry Givens, Collab Capital, 50. Yo, you see him in the street, ask him to let you hold something. $50 million raised, he got you. No, I'm just joking. Don't run up on him either. Right, don't run up on him either.
I got something else on me.
Right. Don't run up on him. Don't think it's sweet, man. Hands still work. No, it's fine. But thank y'all for tapping in, for tuning in to Inside the Vault with Ash Cash, the greatest money mindset show on the planet. Make sure you tap in. If you know a black founder who is in tech, who needs some funding, some capital, make sure y'all tap in. But I'll see y'all next time. We're gonna keep bringing you heat, keep bringing you powerful interviews. Till next time, in God's will, I am Ash Cash. Peace.
Oh yeah. You won't Ash Cash, you can catch it right here in the ball.